Throwaway for obvious reasons. Pretty sure my husband, male, 36, is cheating, but needs some advice. I've been sitting here staring at this blank page for like 20 minutes trying to figure out how to even start this. I never thought I'd be one of those women posting about their cheating husband, but here I am, I guess. So me, female 34, and my husband Brian, male 36, have been married for 7 years. We met at my friend Jamie's housewarming party back in college. He was honestly so sweet back then. Like the next time we ran into each other at the campus coffee shop, he remembered my exact coffee order, vanilla latte with an extra shot and almond milk. Like, who does that? I was basically sold right there. We got married after dating for 2 years, and things were really good for a long time. We bought our apartment together 3 years ago, adopted our cat Muffin from the shelter after we tried for kids for like 2 years with no luck. Still kind of hurts to talk about that, to be honest. Anyway, I work as a graphic designer from home, and Brian has this executive position at a marketing firm downtown. He got promoted last year, and I was so proud of him. But then he started working longer hours and seemed way more stressed all the time. The thing is, about 14 months ago, I lost some really big clients when the economy tanked and our finances got pretty tight. We had to dip into our savings and put our plans to buy a house on hold. We're actually kind of underwater on our mortgage, which is super stressful. But here's where things get weird. Around 3 months ago, Brian suddenly started saying he needed to work overtime, like 4 to 5 nights a week. He said it was to keep up with the department's demands and to secure his position because the company was doing some restructuring. At first, I believed him. I even would make him dinner that he could reheat when he got home, which was usually after midnight, by the way. I was trying to be understanding because we really needed the money, you know? But then I started noticing some changes. Like he bought this really expensive watch. We're talking like $800, even though we supposedly don't have money. And he started wearing this new cologne I didn't recognize. And he's been super weird about his phone lately. Like he takes it to the bathroom with him and keeps it face down on the table. And we haven't had sex in like 2 months. He's always too tired when he gets home. So I checked our joint bank account. I know some people think this is wrong, but we share the account and found all these cash withdrawals. When I asked him about them, he was like, those are for client dinners and transportation costs, but it's like $203 a week. That seems like a lot. I was talking to my friend Holly, female, 34, who actually works in HR at Brian's company, and she got this really weird look on her face when I mentioned all the overtime Brian's been doing. She didn't actually say anything, but she looked uncomfortable. And then there's the laundry thing. Brian suddenly started doing his own laundry separately. He has never done laundry before in 7 years of marriage. And I've noticed some of his favorite clothes have disappeared from our closet. Like his blue button-down I got him for his birthday last year, and that sweater he always wears to his mom's place. Last night, I finally decided to confront him about everything. We were having dinner that I cooked even though I had a deadline for a client project, and I just asked him about the late nights and the new cologne. He said the cologne was a free sample from a department store, which is such BS because I know those samples are tiny and he's been wearing it for weeks. Then I mentioned that Holly hadn't seen him at the recent late meetings, and he got all defensive, saying Holly wouldn't know about marketing department schedules. I could tell he was getting angry, but I kept going and brought up the watch. He claimed it was a bonus from work that he was saving as a surprise for me, a surprise he's been wearing. Make it make sense. When I asked about the cash withdrawals, he completely flipped out and accused me of not trusting him and monitoring him. Like, excuse me, we share the account. He stormed out saying he needed air and, of course, took his phone with him. I watched from the window and saw him texting furiously as he walked to his car. He didn't come back for 3 hours. So after he left, I checked our phone bill, again, shared account, and saw he's been calling the same number over and over. I Googled it, and it belongs to someone named Amy. I asked a mutual friend who works at his company and found out Amy, female, 29, is some new employee in Brian's department. I feel sick, like physically nauseous. I don't want to believe he would actually cheat, but what else could this be? Am I being paranoid? Should I hire a private investigator or something? I don't even know what to do. Edit. Wow, this blew up overnight. I'm trying to read all your comments. Edit 2. to answer some common questions. No, I haven't confronted him about Amy specifically yet. I'm scared of what I'll find out, to be honest. Edit 3. For those asking about checking his phone, I haven't. He has a passcode and never leaves it unattended anymore. And yes, this is new behavior. Edit 4. Several people have asked about his behavior when he came home after storming out. He acted like nothing happened, just came in, said he drove around to clear his head and went straight to bed. This morning he left for work before I was even awake. Edit 5. Thank you all for the support. I'm trying to figure out my next steps. And no, we don't have a prenup. Now for the first update. Yeah, so turns out my husband, male, 36, was definitely cheating. So I donated all his stuff to charity while he was with his affair partner. First, thanks everyone for your support on my last post. I was honestly overwhelmed by all the comments and DMs. A lot has happened in the last 2 weeks, and things have gotten both clearer and messier, if that makes sense. So after that argument I mentioned in my last post where Brian stormed out, he came back acting super weird, like suspiciously nice. He brought me flowers twice. He hasn't bought me flowers in like 2 years, and kept talking about how we should plan a vacation once things settle down at work. Classic guilty behavior, I guess. I mean, I've watched enough crime shows to recognize the signs, lol. I finally met up with my friend Holly for coffee last Tuesday. I could tell she was hiding something in my last post, and after I pushed her a bit, she admitted she had seen Brian and this Amy person having lunch together at a restaurant near their office. She said they were holding hands across the table, and Amy was feeding him bites of her dessert. Holly said she felt terrible keeping it from me, but didn't know what to do. I don't blame her. She was in an impossible situation. I think something in me just snapped, like I went from being sad and confused to this weird, calm detective mode. I started going through everything. First, I checked our shared Google Calendar, which he apparently forgot I have access to. Lol, idiot. And found so many late meetings that didn't match what he told me. Like he told me he was working late on the Johnson project last Thursday, but his calendar showed it was completed the week before. I'm not a marketing expert, but pretty sure you don't keep working on finished projects. Then I found receipts in our car for dinners at super expensive restaurants on nights he claimed to be working late at the office. We're talking $200 plus meals when we supposedly don't have money. One was for that Italian place downtown where we went for our anniversary last year. That one really hurt. By the way, he had the nerve to order the same special wine we had on our anniversary with her. Oh, wait, I forgot to mention I found the receipts when I was actually looking for a phone charger in his car. Not like I was snooping through his stuff on purpose. Although honestly, at that point I probably would have. But the thing that really confirmed it was when I was doing laundry and found this random key in his gym bag. It wasn't to our apartment or his office or anything I recognized. And yeah, by the way, he suddenly started going to the gym again after like 2 years of saying he didn't have time. Should have been my first clue, I guess. So last Wednesday, when Brian said he was working late again, I decided to follow him. I know that sounds crazy and like something from a movie, but I was desperate for the truth. I'm not normally the type to do something like this, but after months of lies, I just couldn't take it anymore. I waited outside his office and followed his car across town to this apartment building I'd never seen before. And guess what? He used that mystery key to get in. I sat in my car and cried for like an hour. But then I realized crying wasn't going to fix anything. The next day, I hired a PI. It was expensive, but worth every penny. I mean, I had to use some of my personal savings, but whatever. Within 2 days, they had photos of Brian and Amy together, shopping for furniture at IKEA, kissing outside the building, going in with overnight bags. The PI even got a copy of the lease Brian signed 2 months ago using our joint email account, which he didn't realize I still check sometimes. The worst part, he's been systematically moving his stuff there. All those working late nights were partly him moving his comic book collection, his fancy record player, and even family photos. Who does that? Like, who even has the time to orchestrate such an elaborate deception? Oh, and then I found credit card statements showing weekend trips with her, while he told me he was at work conferences, including a weekend at the same vineyard where we celebrated our 5th anniversary. I remember him texting me from there saying he wished I was there and the presentations were boring, while apparently having a romantic getaway with her. I can't even. So last Thursday morning, I decided to confront him. I waited until breakfast and showed him the PI photos. He tried to deny everything at first. He claimed Amy was just a friend helping him surprise me with a rental property. When I showed him the dinner receipts and credit statements, he kept changing his story. First, he said I was invading his privacy. Then suddenly it was my fault for being distant and unavailable. He said something about me always working and never having time for him, which is hilarious because I work from home to save money while he's the one who's never here. And when he is here, he's just on his phone texting her probably. The timeline shows he started this before our money problems even began. When I pointed that out, he got all flustered and claimed he had feelings for Amy, but nothing physical happened. So I showed him the kissing photo. He got so angry about the PI and called me psychotic for having him followed, but finally admitted it. He said he wasn't happy and deserved more. After 7 years of marriage, then he stormed out saying he needed time to think. He came back the next day acting like nothing happened. He refused to talk about it, just said we'd discuss it later when things calmed down. Then announced he had a mandatory weekend leadership retreat starting Friday. Guess what the PI found? Text messages confirming he and Amy were actually planning a weekend beach getaway, starting Friday, paid for with our money, our joint account money, while we're supposedly struggling financially. I completely broke down after he left for work that morning, like full sobbing on the bathroom floor. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, just kept seeing those photos of them together over and over. But then something just clicked. I suddenly felt weirdly calm. I spent Thursday making calls to every charity in our area, found places that would accept clothing donations, electronics, sports equipment, everything. Scheduled pickups throughout Friday and Saturday. Friday morning, after Brian left with his weekend bag, telling me again about his leadership retreat, I started packing everything. All his clothes, his fancy watch collection, including that $800 one he recently bought, all his electronics, his signed baseball collection, his designer suits, his gaming system, all of it. I was careful though. Anything that was a family item or that he owned before our marriage, I boxed up and dropped off with his parents for safekeeping during our apartment renovation. They don't know anything yet. Everything else, everything that was either a gift or bought with our joint money, went to charity. His fancy suits went to an organization that helps people dress for job interviews. The watches went to a veterans program, the baseball collection to a children's hospital, his expensive sneaker collection to a youth center, his electronics to a women's shelter. I kept detailed receipts of everything, just in case. My lawyer friend said this was important. NGL, there were moments when I was packing where I almost stopped, like when I found the ticket stub from our first date that he kept in his wallet, or the sweater I gave him for our first Christmas. But then I'd remember those pictures of him with her and keep going. By Saturday night, all that was left were the divorce papers on the kitchen counter, alongside printouts of the PI photos, our bank statements showing his withdrawals, and a note saying I've helped clear out his old life. I'm currently staying at Holly's place for the weekend. My phone is turned off, and honestly, I slept through the night for the first time in months. It feels so weird to not be constantly anxious about where he is or what he's doing or who he's with. I know some people might think what I did was extreme, but honestly, he was already moving his stuff out piece by piece without telling me, building a whole new life with her while lying to my face every day. I just helped the process along, and at least the charities will benefit from his designer clothes obsession. We'll update when I eventually turn my phone back on. I'm guessing there will be some messages waiting. Probably not looking forward to that part. Lol. Edit 1. A lot of people are asking about the legal implications. I consulted a lawyer before doing this. In our state, anything purchased during the marriage is considered joint property, and since he was already removing shared property without my consent to furnish another home, my lawyer said the donations are legally defensible. Will it make the divorce messier? Maybe. Do I care? Not anymore. Edit 2. To those asking about our finances, yes, I've already separated what's left in our accounts and frozen our joint credit cards. I'm not stupid. Also changed all my passwords for everything. Edit 3. Some people are suggesting I should have sold his stuff instead of donating it. Honestly, it wasn't about the money. The charities needed these things more than I needed a few extra dollars. And the donations are tax deductible, so there's that. Plus, I was so angry, I just wanted it gone. Now for the second update. So it's been a little while since I posted about donating all of Brian's stuff while he was off on his little weekend getaway with Amy. After spending that weekend at Holly's place, I finally turned my phone back on Sunday evening. Holy shit. 33 missed calls from Brian, 17 from his mother Elaine, and like 8 calls from random numbers that were definitely just Brian using other people's phones. There were also like 40 plus text messages that I could barely even bring myself to read at first. I decided to listen to the voicemails first. Big mistake probably. And you guys, the progression was actually kind of hilarious in a really sad way. The first one was just confused about where I was and where his clothes were. Then they quickly got angrier about what happened to his stuff. Then he panicked about needing his suits for a Monday presentation. Finally, he threatened that his lawyer would make me pay for everything and that I'd regret this. I was shaking by the end of the last message, not gonna lie. But also, it felt kind of good. Like he's been lying to my face for months and now he's finally experiencing some consequences. Is that petty? Maybe. Do I care? Not really anymore. Then I started reading the texts while Holly sat next to me for moral support and brought wine, bless her. Apparently, Amy had some family emergency and they had to cut their romantic beach getaway short. At least, that's what Brian told me in his texts. But Holly found out from another coworker that Amy and Brian had a huge fight at the beach house when she discovered Brian hadn't actually told me he wanted a divorce yet. He had been telling her our marriage was basically over and I knew about it, but was in denial or whatever. Such BS. So Brian came home early, expecting everything to be normal. His key still worked. I didn't have time to change the locks yet, but walked into an apartment basically empty of all his stuff, except for a box of childhood photos I'd left. According to his increasingly panicked texts, he spent hours searching the place, thinking I'd just hidden everything as a prank or something. Like, who would even do that? The thing he was most freaked out about was his presentation Monday morning to these potential investors. Apparently, it was super important for his career, and he had nothing professional to wear. He texted me that he got. I was upset, but this was his career, and I couldn't sabotage his entire future over this. Excuse me, sir. You sabotaged our future when you decided to start a whole second life. And then his mother started texting me asking why I would do this to him when he worked so hard for our future, and how could I be so mean when he's been supporting me through my work struggles. I realized, oh my God, he's been lying to his entire family about what's going on. I always wondered why his parents had been so cold to me lately. He's probably been telling them I'm some failure who can't contribute financially or something. I sent her back a simple text with just the PI photos of Brian and Amy together, shopping for furniture and kissing outside their new love nest. She hasn't responded yet, lol. I'm not going to pretend donating all his stuff was easy emotionally. There were definitely moments where I'd find something like the watch I got him for our first anniversary or the sweater he wore on our honeymoon and just break down crying on the floor of our closet. Like I really thought we had something special, you know? I really believed him when he said he was working late for our future. God, I feel so stupid sometimes. But then I'd remember him taking money from our joint account to fund dates with another woman and get angry all over again and keep packing. My feelings kept going up and down the entire time. Anyway, Monday afternoon, I was at my desk working on this logo design that was already way past deadline. Because surprise, it's hard to focus on work when your marriage is imploding. When I got a call from the front desk of my building, Brian was there causing a scene and demanding to see me. I work in this co-working space downtown since I can't afford a private office, and the receptionist told me there was a man saying he was my husband, and he looked really bad. When I went downstairs, Brian was standing there in what were clearly borrowed clothes, like the pants were too short and the shirt was too big and nothing matched. It was actually sad. And he was loud, like people were staring. Security was already heading over when I got there. He started yelling about how I'd ruined his presentation, how he had to wear old gym clothes to meet with investors, and how his boss was super mad because they potentially lost a client because he looked so unprofessional. Holly later confirmed this was true. Apparently his boss was furious, and Brian couldn't exactly say his wife donated all his clothes because he was having an affair. I just stood there calmly, on the outside at least, Inside, I was absolutely freaking out and said we could talk later in a public place, but not at my workplace. Security ended up escorting him out while he was still yelling about his expensive watches and how I had no right. We finally met up 3 days later at this cafe downtown. I picked a public place because honestly, I was a little scared of how angry he was. He showed up looking even worse than before, unshaven, in clothes that were clearly borrowed from someone with completely different taste. I almost felt bad. Almost. As soon as he sat down, he started in saying I'd ruined his life and career and demanded if I had any idea what I'd done. No hello, no nothing. I stayed super calm, which I think made him even madder, to be honest, and just slid my phone across the table showing one of the PI photos of him and Amy shopping for a couch together. He actually had the nerve to say the affair didn't justify what I did to him and that he deserved better than being left with nothing. I reminded him about our 7 years together and how he was the one who betrayed my trust. He told me he was planning to ask for a divorce after he got his yearly bonus. Like that made it better. I actually laughed out loud at that. I asked if the right way included emptying our joint accounts first. He claimed all that money went to investments for our future, which was just, I can't even. So I pulled out the bank statements showing transfers to the new apartment security deposit and furniture store purchases. He threatened to sue me for theft of his possessions, so I showed him all the donation receipts I'd kept and reminded him about community property laws. His face actually went white. It was kind of satisfying, to be honest. Then he tried a new angle, saying I was emotionally abusive by working from home and monitoring his movements. Like what? I told him I had recordings of him admitting to the affair. I don't actually, but he doesn't know that, and he just stopped arguing. He stormed out after saying I never supported his dreams, which is hilarious because who paid the bills when he was in between jobs 3 years ago? Me, who encouraged him to go for that promotion, even though it meant less time together. And me. I literally supported all his dreams until his dreams became sleeping with a coworker and draining our bank account. According to Holly, Brian and Amy's relationship has totally fallen apart. They had this huge argument in the company cafeteria where she found out the truth about our marriage. Apparently, seeing how he acted during all this drama made her realize what he's really like. 2 days ago, I got a formal letter from Brian's lawyer demanding the return of items or financial compensation valued at $22,000. My lawyer, yes, I have one now, confirmed the donations were legally defensible as community property, especially with the evidence of his infidelity and financial deception. So that's fun. Our friends are pretty divided. Some think I went way too far with the donations. Others tell me I'm their hero and want details on how I pulled it off. Brian's parents are furious and keep texting that I need to pay him for everything. I've blocked their numbers now. The apartment situation is complicated. We're both on the lease for another 8 months, and neither of us can afford to break it. Brian is apparently crashing with some guy from work because the love nest with Amy isn't move-in ready yet, and also they're not together anymore, lol. I'm still living in our place for now, but I've started looking for something smaller I can afford on my own. Through mutual friends, I found out Brian had been telling Amy our marriage was already over months ago and that I knew about it but was in denial, which explains why she seemed so shocked when she found out the truth. He was lying to everyone. And get this, when I finally got full access to our financial records, I discovered that Brian's spending sprees had left our joint account nearly empty. Looks like he was definitely planning to ask for divorce right after securing his yearly bonus in December. Basically, he was using me to pay bills while setting up his new life. Nice, right? Yesterday was our preliminary divorce hearing, and it was wild, you guys. Brian showed up in a brand new designer suit. Where did that money come from? Looking all smug like he expected the judge to immediately side with him. My lawyer presented all the PI evidence, financial records of him draining our accounts, and the donation receipts. Brian's lawyer argued the donations were vindictive and demanded compensation. The judge reviewed all the evidence, including proof that Brian was furnishing another apartment while still married to me. Brian actually interrupted the judge. Bad move, saying I knew the marriage was over and was just punishing him for moving on. My lawyer then presented text messages between Brian and Amy discussing hiding assets from me. The judge looked not impressed. When the judge started questioning Brian about the financial deception during our marriage, he completely lost it. He started saying I trapped him in a loveless marriage and that I was obsessed with controlling him. His lawyer looked like he wanted to die. The judge noted that furnishing another home with a girlfriend while married constitutes abandonment in our state, and that the items I donated were community property I had every right to dispose of. Brian stormed out of the courtroom saying horrible things about me. The judge actually had to call for order, but I felt vindicated, like finally someone in authority saw the truth. I've moved to a smaller apartment now that I can afford on my own. I'm rebuilding my design business, got 2 new clients this week, and I've started therapy to work through all my feelings about the marriage and how it ended. Brian actually tried to reconcile after Amy left him. Can you believe that? He showed up with flowers saying he made a mistake and still loved me. I literally closed the door in his face. We only communicate through lawyers now. Sometimes I do question if my reaction was too extreme. Like in the middle of the night when I can't sleep, I wonder if I should have just filed for divorce like a mature adult without the donations. But then I remember the months of lies, the secret apartment, the drained bank accounts, and how he was literally building a new life while telling me he was working late for our future. And I don't regret standing up for myself. The divorce should be finalized in about 3 months, according to my lawyer. I'm still pretty cautious about dating again, but I've reconnected with old friends that Brian had gradually pulled me away from. Red flag I totally missed at the time. I even went on a casual coffee date last week with this guy I met at my new apartment building. Nothing serious, just nice to remember there are decent men out there. Anyway, that's my final update. Thank you all for your support through this absolute nightmare. It's been the hardest thing I've ever gone through, but I've found strength I didn't know I had. And Muffin the cat is thriving in our new place. Turns out she doesn't miss Brian at all, lol.